Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Proverbs, the 27th chapter. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. See, so don't. When you boast yourself of tomorrow, it's basically like, oh, I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to do that. This is what I'm doing. This is what I got planned. But you don't know what the Lord's going to bring, right? You don't know what the day might bring. That's why even James said, that we ought to say, Lord willing, right? If the Lord will, we'll do this. If the Lord will, we'll do that. Because you don't know what's going to happen, right? It says, don't brag about tomorrow, since you don't know what the day will bring. Let another man praise thee, and let not thine own mouth, a stranger and not thine own lips. Right. So don't go around, tooting your own horn, so to speak. If you do things worthy of praise, give way for others to praise you, rather than you going around trying to, make yourself sound so good. People don't like that. A stone is heavy and the sand weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. It says here, a stone is heavy and sand is weighty, but the resentment caused by a fool is even heavier. And so you want to be, you don't want to be this guy, right? You don't want to be this guy. Yeah, stones are heavy, like a boulder or a heavy stone, but to bear the resentment that comes from, from way of being a fool is heavier than them both, and you don't have to bear that. Wrath is cruel, and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? See, because somebody may be angry, right? They may bring forth their wrath, do something cruel, and as it says, anger is outrageous, but when somebody is envious, they're willing to go, to extreme routes. Anger and wrath are triggered. They're, sometimes they're more short outbursts, and damage is done. But envy goes on for a long, long time. It can do a whole lot of damage. Somebody that's envious, they're thinking carefully. They got masterminds. Master plans of how to completely ruin your life from A to Z. It says open rebuke is better than secret love. Why? Because if you don't rebuke somebody, right, for whatever it is that they're doing, and you just sort of fall back, trying not to hurt their feelings or whatever the case is, you're really working more against them than you are for them. In a similar token, in a previous proverb, Solomon mentioned that if you spare the rod, you hateth your child, because you don't want to hurt them. Right? It says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So a friend that wounds you, but this isn't like somebody stabs you. A friend is going to stab you up, right? It's talking about through rebuke, right? They might hurt your feelings, but it's for your betterment, versus the kisses or the flattery of an enemy, which is deceitful. The full soul loatheth an honeycomb, but to the hungry soul, even every bitter thing is sweet. Yeah, and when you get full, when you finish eating, and you watch somebody eating, somebody who's now about to eat, it's like an uncomfortable feeling. It's like, ugh, how are you able to eat, with such, passion? It's because you feel like you can't even take another bite. It doesn't matter how appetizing the food is. Likewise, in reverse, to somebody that's very hungry, even bitter is, imagine somebody, right, that doesn't like vegetables, and they go 3, 4, 5 days without eating, and then you present them a salad, they're going to devour it. So even the thing that they that they don't like, let them be hungry enough, and you'll see how quickly they jump on it. As a bird that wandereth from her nest, so is a man that wandereth from his place. It says a person who strays from home is like a bird that strays from his nest. Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart, so doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. says the heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense. Right, because you have some some ointments, right, some perfumes that are, they smell really good, right? They're very pleasant, and it's like we just mentioned, a hearty counsel, right, by a dear friend. Thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not, neither go into thy brother's house in the day of thy calamity, for better is a neighbor that is near than a brother far off. Never abandon a friend, either yours or your father's. Why your father's? Because they're loyal, right? If say, for example, when you look at Solomon was able to work with Hiram, which worked with his father. Okay, and so if your father is a good man, his friends are trustworthy, and they will look out for you as well. So don't forsake them. It says when disaster strikes, you won't have to ask your brother for assistance. It's better to go to a neighbor than to a brother who lives far away. Yeah, if something bad was to happen, you want to have people that are nearby that you can depend on, right? Because you may not always be able to go, travel far or go all the way to where a relative is. You may need quick help or quick assistance from a neighbor that's closer by. My friend or my son, be wise and make my heart glad, that I may answer him that reproacheth me. Let's read that in the NLT. It says, be wise, my child, and make my heart glad, that I will be able to answer my critics. And why? What would make his heart glad? If you take heed to his words. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. So how does he foresee the evil? He looks well into his goings. He considers, okay, what damage could come out of this? Okay, so let me avoid that. Let me not do this. Let me not do that. That's an example of hiding himself. But the simple pass on. They go on without consideration. And then they run out of gas on the interstate, and now they all up on there on the side, 2 a.m. in the morning, and now shit, ain't nobody picking up. That's just an example, but as it says, they pass on and are punished because they don't consider. Take his garment that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge of him from a strange woman. Somebody that's surety for a stranger is like somebody that is a guarantee, right? So, they're saying, hey, if this person can't pay the debt, I'll pay it in their stead. Take their garment, that's collateral, because that basically you're looking out for yourself, right? Don't just just take their word for it. No, you need like a security, or a deposit, so that if they're not able to if they want to go ahead and do a reckless thing like that, at least you're protecting yourself with that pledge or that garment, so that if something goes wrong, you have something that can at least alleviate or mitigate the damage of the loss that you might suffer. He that blesseth his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it shall be it shall be counted a curse to him. It says a loud and cheerful greeting early in the morning will be taken as a curse. It won't be received pleasantly, tell you that. You wake up somebody, yeah, you may be excited, but you going around, it's mad. It's very early. You're just coming out with this loud, energy. It's not, it's not ideal. You have some people that are like not morning people, and they'll let you know real quick. That look, man, I ain't even had my coffee yet. Calm down with that. Turn it down. Turn it down. Calm down. A continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike. So imagine that annoyance, right, of that drop, 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 drop. That's what it's like to deal with a quarrelsome or contentious woman. They don't stop. Okay. It says a quarrelsome wife is as annoying as a constant dripping on a rainy day. Once again, they don't stop. Whosoever, now you're eating lunch in your car because you're not trying to stay home. That's crazy work. Whosoever hideth her hideth the wind, and the ointment of his right hand, which bewrayeth itself. It says, stopping her complaints is like trying to stop the wind or trying to hold something with greased hands. It's to no avail. You trying to stop the wind. You cannot stop the wind, right? If you're trying to hold something with greased hands, it's going to slip out. That's what it's like trying to stop her. And that's why it's that annoying. It's like you don't get a break. Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. Right? If you're sharpening an iron tool, you may use iron to do it. Okay, but as it's saying, right, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend, and likewise with us, right? We sharpen each other. Whoso keepeth the fig tree shall eat the fruit thereof, so he that waiteth on his master shall be honored. It says, as workers who tend a fig tree are allowed to eat the fruit, so workers who protect their employer's interests will be rewarded. So sometimes you got to have that best interest in mind. That's how you earn that bonus. It says, as in water, face answereth to face, so the heart of man to man. As a face is reflected in water, that's the face answereth to face. Like imagine that scene in The Lion King where Rafiki, right? The I think he's a monkey, but he's a different kind, a baboon or one of those types. Anyway, he tells Simba, he said, no, look deeper. So first, when Simba looked in the water, he just saw a reflection of himself, right? Before then, he saw his father and everything. But that's that water face to face. That's the reflection. So as it says, as a face is reflected in water, so the heart reflects the real person. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of men are never satisfied. Yeah, there's never going to come a point in time when people stop dying because the grave is full. No. And likewise, you don't ever see enough, right? The eyes of man are never satisfied. There's always something to see. As the fining pot of silver, which the fining pot is like is used to refine silver, and the furnace for gold, so is a man to his praise. So it says, fire tests the purity of silver and gold, but a person is tested by being praised or by flattery. Because you see, there's some people that love it, and they, to the extent where it's like it's vain, right? They're just consumed in that vanity. And there's some that, they don't like it, right? And you can tell, the kind of person, kind of manner a person is, if they just like to do things for vain glory, and they're put to the test by that flattery, by that praise. Though thou shouldest bray a fool in a mortar among wheat with a pestle, yet will not his foolishness depart from him. It says here, you cannot separate fools from their foolishness, even though you grind them like grain with mortar and pestle. Right? NIV, though you grind a fool in a mortar, grinding them like grain with a pestle, you will not remove their folly from them. So it's bound to them. It's like white on rice. Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flock, and look well into thy herds. And spiritually speaking, the state of your flock are those, in this truth now, those that are under you, right? That you are overseer of. You have to be diligent to know their state, right? Know, like a shepherd knows the state of his sheep. You got to make sure, brothers are good, things are getting done right. And look well to thy herds for their well-being. And it takes diligence, right? It takes diligence. It takes care. It's not an easy thing. For riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure for to every generation. It says, for riches don't last forever, and the crown might not be passed to the next generation, right? Which is true, right? It says, the hay appeareth, and the tender grass sheweth itself, and herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for thy clothing, and the goats are the price of the field. And the lambs being for thy clothing, that's their wool, right? Your sheep will provide wool for clothing, and your goats will provide the price for a field, or the price of a field when you sell them. And thou shalt have goat's milk enough for thy food, uh, for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance of thy maidens. And this, I mentioned in verse 23, right, in the spiritual sense. But when you look at it in the literal sense, that's why these subsequent verses are here. Because if you look diligently to the state of your flock, right, and you make sure that everything is good there, these are what's gonna, come off of it, right? You'll be able to um, get or make, enjoy the clothing you can make from the wool of the lambs, right? Sell some of the goats for, for some money, for the price of a field, which is pretty expensive, right? And then have the abundance, okay, which comes by your diligent work to make sure your flock is good. That's basically what that's going into. And that brings us to the end of the book of Proverbs, the 27th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.